Thank you for joining us now. I am Franco Malape. And now the federal government has disclosed that state governments are about to receive double financial disbursement over $1 billion in a few weeks' time. The disbursements are yet to be determined as some of the last tranche of the $1.5 billion World Bank grant to state governments, while the second is the $1 billion naira an exchange deficit withheld by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, made this known at an event to celebrate the achievements of the State Fiscal Transparency, Accountability and Sustainability Program on the sidelines of the 28th Nigeria Economic Summit of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. These finance disbursements, the minister said, will be bringing to a close the performance for results grant, even though the technical assistance component will continue to be delivered by implementing agencies and partners till June 2023, when the program will finally wind down. And away from there now, Nigerians have been told to brace up for more impact of the recent floods on food prices. This warning was given by finance expert Mukhtar Mohammed while speaking on iBrandTV's Business Breakfast on Wednesday. Giving his 2 cents on Nigeria's new inflation report, the analyst noted that with supply structure hampered by flood and insecurity, citizens must be ready.
The flooding in most of the food basket of the nation, you see flooding all over those places, and so definitely we will not have a lot of goods coming towards the urban settlement, because even the rural people will be struggling to feed themselves because of the flood. And the flood badly affected every part of Nigeria, and some parts are highly hit than the other part of Nigeria. So when you look at that and you look at some of the products that will be coming from those parts that are highly hit by flood, then you know that we have a big challenge on our hands. If you look at Benue State, which happens to be the food basket of the nation, they may not be so hit by the flood in Benue State. But again, insecurity in Benue State is on the rise because of the bandits and the henchmen. They are still creating a lot of havoc in that state. So definitely when you look at that, you look at security challenges are still there, even if they are not like they used to be. And also you couple with the fact that a lot of farmers will not be, their crops were lost in terms of the flood. Even Lokoja, Kogi State also experienced it, Edo State, Bayelsa State, Rivers State. Virtually every state in Nigeria was affected, so you expect that to tell in terms of our productivity.
And now, despite growing awareness of the importance of climate risk mitigation in Africa and a growing use of commercial insurance to protect enterprises from climate change, the take-up of insurance by ordinary African consumers is limited. George Ogianegun, and sustainability expert and analyst, joins us now on Business Now to educate us on the role of insurance in mitigating the impact of climate change. Thank you for joining us now, George.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Frank.
Yeah, glad to have you now.
Be here again.
Yeah. Talk to us about the role of insurance in Africa, talking about the impact of climate change and the role insurance has to play. Do we have much of that in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Frank. So the basic role of insurance is to mutualize and to manage risk. So anytime we hear insurance, what comes to mind is risk management. But unfortunately, for a place like Nigeria, insurance has not really been fully embraced because, one, there's no proper education concerning what insurance does. So only a few persons get to understand the business of insurance compared to what we have overseas. In fact, there's a statistic that says that in Africa, for instance, it's not just Nigeria, Africa. Non-life insurance has about 1.8% penetration levels compared to about 3.3% that we have globally or in other jurisdictions or in other nations. So insurance is something that has not been fully understood in Nigeria. And but I thank God for today, with the help of technology, with the help of social media and other traditional media means, people are now beginning to understand the importance of insurance. So let's bring it back to climate change mitigation. You know, I've always told people that when we talk about climate change mitigation, we're talking about, I derived an acronym called VAR: vulnerability, adaptation, and recovery. So for insurance does not play any significant role like that when we talk about mitigation. When we talk about mitigation. So, well, two places where insurance play major roles when we talk about climate change, when we talk about climate change, is in the area of adaptation and the area of recovery. So, insurance helps communities, governments, individuals to adapt to the adverse nature of climate change effects. Secondly, it helps them to recover. For instance, in the past few weeks, we saw how flood devastated a lot of communities around Nigeria. Imagine that most of those properties were actually insured. It will help the victims to actually recover, or call it bounce back effectively. So the importance of insurance in climate change adaptation and recovery cannot actually be fully overemphasized. But then in Nigeria, we have not seen much significance in that area. But I believe that with proper regulations, proper policies, proper frameworks, and everybody, and proper awareness, you know, we can actually bring in insurance and see how we can use it to mitigate risk, or call it the risk.
Okay. So
several sectors that are exposed. Yeah.
Okay. So you talk about the fact that the level of penetration is not even up to 2% earlier. So what do you suppose is responsible? Because yes, the effect of climate change is here with us, and we cannot deny that.
Okay. So for instance, one I would say is poor education. Financial education. Many Nigerians don't have much education when it comes to finances. Then secondly, you come to this issue of religion and culture. For instance, we feel that whatever happens is in the hands of God. God permitted it to happen. So we are not always the people that want to talk about, take responsibilities and put it in our hands to a certain level. Yes, God is in charge of everything that happens. He created us, but also in nature, you must take responsibility. That's why He gave us brain.
Because of our time, because of our time, Mr. George, I would like us to wrap up with this. How do we? You talk about issue of recovery earlier, but in mitigating the impact of climate change, especially on farming, how do we integrate farmers to ensure that they are also captured in this recovery approach or schemes that you talked about earlier? As a wrap up now.
Okay, that's very interesting. So if you look at Nigeria, for instance, 60% of employment, or let me put it that way, in Nigeria, if you look at how the employment is spaced in Nigeria, 60% of Nigerians are employed in the agro sector or in the agricultural sector. So when we talk about climate change affects a lot of farmers. So what do? Farmers have to be introduced to what we call insurance. Not just, and one thing that most of these insurance companies help them to do is also to help in order to reduce their risk, is to also encourage them to adopt the right farming practices. For example, what we call regenerative agriculture, which helps them to reduce the exposure to climate change effects.